immediate actions that you are going to take in relation to government's policies of making sure that local content, we have higher numbers, and also getting refineries at our mining sites?
Well, we'll be writing to them, the observations when we get back to the office. We'll let them understand some of our concerns that we have already reiterated over and over again, and on paper, and then let them have it. Yeah.
The sale of bauxite to your sister company in China, will they have the permit from your ministry?
Well, the lease agreement between the outfit and the ministry states that with regard to affiliate transaction, there should be some form of understanding. The ministry need to be well notified. What was done, some years before the current government came into power, and so that is why we are calling on them to go back and look into that agreement again. We have also looked at the sales and purchase agreement that they've signed. This was executed somewhere in 2014, and in that agreement the bauxite price was pegged at 40. What it means is that it's a long-term purchase and sales agreement. So irrespective of the movement, that price is to be observed over some number of periods. But we also saw what happened in 2016 and 15 when what they were paying in terms of the sales price was far less than the 40. That was again my concern. Because when there is an increase in price, government doesn't get a premium. So when there's a fall, why should we be penalized for that discount? And this is something again we're going to interrogate. And
before this visit, there were earlier reports that this same company had evaded some penalties related to haulage to the tune of about 19 million. What is the total?
Well, that's will be done by the roads ministry. I think it's about penalty of overloading. The road ministry may have those details to for the public, and I think they've come out about it. But as to the details, I don't have the details. But there are expected to be some axle weight limit, and if you go beyond those limits, there's supposed to be some penalty. And I think it was on basis of that that if you exceed 60 metric tons, the estimation is that they've gone beyond that. There's an additional of 30, and so the penalty will be on that 30 times the number of vehicles and the number of load over the period. I think that's what they worked out. Details will be at the ministry, Yeah.
It's not surprising that a company under your ministry could be flouting our laws in the name of mining.
Yeah, that is why it's important that collectively as Ghanaians, and the company, we should begin to do things as are right. This company signs agreement with government, and we need to adhere to the terms of the agreement. What is interesting and very important to this country now, it's the president's concern for value addition, and it is key that we must begin to add some value to our raw materials, because it's clear that we have not benefited from the raw materials. It has been extracted and taken out of this country. So the value addition aspect, it's very important, and we all witness to the recent bill passed in Parliament to add some addition to our bauxite. So the signal is clear to this company that from that date, within a period of about 5 years, so we're not going to allow, raw bauxite in its current form to be taken out of this country. So we are concerned about some of the rules and then the regulations that have been flouted by some of this concern. It's a major concern to us. Yeah.
This disregard for affiliate transaction costs in the mining agreement seems to be running almost throughout the mining companies. Would you prefer sanctions to companies who continue to fall?
Precisely, there are sanctions mechanisms in agreement, and those would have to be, looked at. Yeah.
And what kind of sanctions are
you sooner or later get to know about it. Yeah.
When you say government would advise itself, what exactly do you mean?
Governments through the ministry has a broad powers, and a minerals concession agreement, very broad. The minister has a right in the public interest to terminate agreement. And when you say it's a public interest, if people have been cheated for far too long, it's an interest of the public, isn't it? There are procedures for suspensions when things are not being done accurately. So those broad powers are within the framework, the ambit of the ministry to exercise. And so those are some of the things that we'll be looking at, and as and when we get a proper advice from the commission, we should be able to execute those terms.
Honorable, we know that you talk about value addition, but this is a company that exports between 120 to 150,000 tons
million, yeah,
annually. Is this not worrying? And what immediate steps are you going to take?
Yeah, if you listen to them, they commence a negotiation with government to start refining, to establish a refining plan, if I understand them clearly. But their concern has to do with the reserve deposit over a period. They're talking about 50 years reserve to enable them come into those terms. The good thing is that if you combine Chile and then this current size that we have extensive reserve that will enable creations and formations of refinery. So I think we will call on companies that are interested to begin to talk to the government and see how we can establish a refinery that of course will benefit both the company and then the Ghanaians as a general, rather than taking it out of its current raw stage.